Hi, good evening. This is Thomas Doan with the Ghost in the Machine Christian Philosophy and Apologetics channel. I'm here tonight with Farrell Cox from Hondo First Baptist Church, my church. He is our most effective and prominent evangelist we have at our church, and he is also a member of my Christian apologetics class. He is one of my star students, and he's very eager to get out there and defend the faith with all of his might. He does love the Lord, our God, with all of his mind, plus all of his body, his soul. So he's very grounded in Christian scripture, and he's highly effective in what he does. That being said, in our conversations, I've introduced Farrell to the concept of street epistemology, and I've recently done a fair amount of research into the movement founded by Dr. Peter Boghossian and Dr. James Lindsay in order to it's a methodology that is used in order to challenge people who hold on to dogmatic beliefs and get them to back down from these dogmatic beliefs. So Farrell was very interested in this movement, and in his evangelical efforts, he has run into some people who do push back against his evangelical methods, and in doing so, he became curious in how to counter these street epistemology methodologies. And lo and behold, I have done a fair amount of research, so I've been working with Farrell in how to counter the arguments that are going to be presented against them. And a little backstory, all these street epistemologists, what they basically do is they offer a form of Socratic methodology, and more specifically in the analytic arguments that Socrates would offer in his dialogues with his various interlocutors. So, with that being said, I've been able to do a fair amount of work within how we can use the Socratic methodologies in our evangelistic and apologetical purposes, which in all intents and purposes is our way of doing Christian public philosophy on a street level. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to ask Farrell here. So you've been introduced into the YouTube channel of this gentleman, Anthony Magnabosco. What impression have you received from viewing his videos?
He's very polite. He's intelligent. He doesn't come at you negatively. He's very positive, even to the point of passiveness.
Okay, interesting. So that's interesting. It sounds like he's being very charitable with his interlocutors, would you say? He breaks that concept that we have of the angry atheist over there.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, but what do you think about the methods that he uses, his argumentation methods? Because they're typically based on this concept of asking somebody to rate their beliefs on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, very effective. It surprised me. Typically, when you deal with an atheist, they make a bunch of claims. It's either truth claims that they assert themselves, or it could be something negative about your truth claim. It wasn't like that with him. He comes at it at the angle that he is looking for the truth, which I think throws a lot of people off guard.
Indeed. Okay, that's the interesting thing is that would be the exact methodology that Socrates uses in his dialogues. Is Socrates' ultimate goal is to get somebody to walk somebody into the reasons why they believe, and then to be able to get them to have a strong foundation for what they believe in, rather than just holding on to a series of beliefs in a dogmatic fashion. But I know we've talked about this before, and you brought out a very important point, is it doesn't seem like the street epistemologists are interested in helping lead their interlocutors into, say, a truth condition. They just leave them dangling in doubt. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And that being said, what are your concerns about, like, not necessarily for yourself, but say other evangelists who may encounter a street epistemologist in their evangelical efforts?
Well, the politeness, I would say, be on guard. They're coming at you absolutely as a wolf in sheep's clothing. They tend to be so polite that you let your guard down.
Okay, what about more to the point, their methodologies? How do you think that would confront a Christian as they're in their...
They ask he asks really hard-hitting questions right out of the gate. Typically, he'll ask, surprisingly, this is a hard-hitting question. How many people get stumped on this? Why are you a Christian?
Okay.
You know, why do you believe in Jesus Christ? You would be surprised that most people give the answer, well, I was raised this way, which is what most atheists would assert anyhow. The reason that Christians believe the way they believe is because they were brainwashed to.
Okay, fair enough point. Would it surprise you to find out that they're actually operating under tenets of epistemology? It's in their name. They're street epistemologists. So, and I know we've talked about this before. Epistemology is the study of the theories of knowledge, how we can come about knowing things. So, and these methodologies, what they're adhering to is a concept called foundationalism, that there has to be some sort of a foundational belief, that there has to be a properly basic belief that grounds all other beliefs. And what they're trying to get to is drill down into what that properly basic belief that you have. Unfortunately, most people don't have a strong or robust enough worldview where they've explored that option. And
May I?
Well, please.
Okay.
Right.
So this is what I've noticed. It's not okay. So he wants to cause doubt in the foundation. It's not so much as getting down to what the foundation is. It could be anything. If you stated that you believe in Jesus Christ because you spoke to a rock one day and felt a warm fuzzy feeling inside your soul, and now you believe in Jesus Christ, his main goal is to ask questions in such a manner that it gets you to doubt why your foundation would be in this rock.
Indeed.
So
and that's fair enough. Yes.
So for Christians, though, our foundation being in Jesus Christ, and then the evidence that we have for that, he's not even interested in.
Not at all. He does operate under certain evidentialist accounts of knowledge, but we'll get back to that a little bit later. But yeah, so you're looking at foundational belief systems. Yeah, so if somebody could have, let's say, a belief that they had a warm, fuzzy feeling of a rock, but most Christians hold to, you consider Orthodox Christian doctrine, right? So with that being said, what he's looking at is people who don't have a developed worldview, where they haven't explored, whether it be theologically or epistemologically, a strong grounding for their belief systems. Unfortunately, many people fall into that category. So what his methods are doing is to try to get them to explore all the way down to that epistemological rock bottom. As we would have, as say strong Christians, we'd have a very strong reasons that we would believe in this. But people who do not have these kind of reasons, they would find themselves in a morass of doubt because they haven't explored these questions. But the ironic thing is, when you are going through a deep level theological course, or you're even going through a very good Bible study regime, you can lead people down into these paths of guided doubt. Say they're challenging previously held belief systems that may not be orthodox within the Christian faith, and as long as they're guided into confronting the reasons why they believe, but then they're also rebuilt, we'd say, like kind of sanctified within Christian orthodoxy, that would be, say, a proper use of, like, say, methodologies of doubt. Would you agree?
Yeah. For instance, one of the questions he will use is, do you believe in that 100%?
Exactly.
Like you said, on a scale of 1 to 10, the way his method works is he gets you to doubt just by 1 or 2%. Then he understands he's got you. He's inserted any type of doubt. That's a victory for him.
Exactly.
For instance, he'll use the example of, I parked my car in a parking lot. Am I 100% certain that it is still there? I haven't seen it.
Yes.
So am I 100% certain? I'm fairly certain it's still there. Somebody could have come by and taken it. Could have been towed. It could have, any number of things may have happened. My car may not be there. Am I 100% sure? And then he'll use that as, so you weren't there. You didn't witness anything. You're going off the eyewitness of people that was over 2,000 years ago. Or can you be fairly certain that they were sure?
Yes. Or
are you sure that they were sure? Is this 100%? I think the best counter argument to that is, are you fairly certain that by touching a hot stove you will burn your hand? Fairly certain. Are you 100% sure?
What I would want to stress more is I know these are very high theories of epistemology that may not be at first glance applicable towards evangelical methods, but they are good ways of getting out of the street epistemologist's dilemma that they pose us in trying to bracket our beliefs in a series of other more foundational beliefs, which they will drill down into. And what they hope to find is that their interlocutors are going to be faced with the fact that they either cling to a certain belief as being epistemic ground rock or bedrock, should I say, or that they have to realize that they don't hold to any foundation of their beliefs at all. That's their ultimate goal, is to break out into that non-foundationalism. But for our purposes, what we as Christians would want to push back against street epistemologists is knowing their trade, their epistemology. So you would then ask the street epistemologist, is like, are there any other ways that we can know things outside of evidence?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a good pushback you can have. So you're now putting them on the back heel defending their evidentialism, or you can actually present other ways of knowing things. You can be very honest and you can state something as simple as like, I have no evidence for you being another mind outside of my own perceptions. I have no evidence for anything other than my own perception. So all I know is that we may be a brain in a vat, we may be plugged into the matrix, but the only evidence I have comes out of my five senses.
Well, I think the important thing to understand is that he's not looking for evidence. He could care less.
I know exactly, but right now we're building more of a debate. You're actually using skepticism at its strongest against him. We're using different arguments that originate back with Descartes. He decided one day to find out what he could actually prove without any other foundational beliefs, and he drilled down into the fact that in his doubt he couldn't prove anything except for the fact that he was actually thinking about what he could disprove. And that's where his famous statement, I think, therefore I am, which is the great cogito ergo sum. But then he was able to realize that he had to have some sort of foundations for his beliefs, and he built up this whole belief system of foundationalism where he was able to say, I can believe that I think, so there's at least I know that. And then he started saying, what else can I prove without a shadow of doubt? And then build up his belief system from there. In knowing how to push back against the skeptic, we can use their own methodologies against them in stating that they themselves, if they want to hold true to their skepticism, they can't 100% believe that you are another mind convincingly using anything that doesn't involve their five senses. So if you can get them to admit to that, then you can start building up on what can be considered a properly basic belief. We can hold to what's called a Morean fact, which seems so very commonsensical that you can say, I know this is my hand before me. And he may be able to push back against you and saying, well, how do you know that's your real hand if you're a brain into that? And then you can state, well, in this actual experience I have being a brain in a vat or plugged into the matrix, that is still my hand before me, whether it be the hand that I have in my perception of being a conscious in the brain in the vat or my projection in the matrix. So at that point in time, you've actually pushed his epistemic foundation or his methodologies way into the skeptical field, much further past than he's actually able pushing you. He's actually trying to nudge you, but you're actually using standard and time-tested and true philosophical argumentation and pushing back against him. So that's one of the first things that we can use as being Christian evangelists when we're getting pushed back from the skeptics, is we can actually dial our skepticism up to 11 in dealing with a skeptic and to see if they want to hold true to their actual skepticism, or they'll be able to agree with you on that there may be an actual belief that they have to hold on to dogmatically in order for all of their other structures of belief to hold on to. They may hold to a coherentist account, but as a Christian philosopher, that is still something that we can educate our evangelist brothers on how to counter. But coherentist sets of beliefs are just as vulnerable to skeptical arguments as our foundational beliefs. The main thing is I would love to be able to communicate to you is, would you believe that you can answer the street epistemologist in the fact that how you can know things actually has nothing to do with any kind of evidence, but actually has to come about within living a righteous life? You can.
Yes.
Do you believe that knowledge is a virtue?
Not all the time.
If it begins with the fear of God,
then yes.
Okay. So would you believe that there's such a thing as the intellectual virtues? Like saying that you are a responsible person who's always going to seek truth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's great about that is we actually have a very strong field of epistemology. It's called virtue epistemology. That is not based on evidence. That's not based on any kind of way that your beliefs cohere with other beliefs. It's all right. Yeah. So this is great. This is great public discourse that we can have between a philosopher and an evangelist. So, what I'm trying to state here, the ultimate term is, and I know your initial pushback was the concept that epistemic virtues sound like it's something that emanates with or originates with Buddhism, which honestly it doesn't. It comes out of Christian philosophy, and as a fruit of the Spirit, believe it or not. So something you can push back with the street epistemologist is actually presenting the case for virtue epistemology, that the way that people can come to know things are those people who already have the virtue of seeking true beliefs.
That's the method.
What's the method?
That's the method. Okay, like whenever he comes up and says, "Hey, look, I'm a guy who's just seeking the truth," and then he starts asking questions under the premise of seeking the truth, but what he really wants to do is cause doubt.
Yeah, and that is the street epistemologist method. But believe it or not, Socrates' actual virtue was actually seeking true beliefs. His virtue was to be able to confront his own belief systems at first, and then his students and his interlocutors, and be able to get them to confront their beliefs and get them to learn the virtues of seeking the truth rather than just believing something just because it was convenient, or say, like we talked about earlier, that people only believed in because they were raised in a certain worldview. So he, in essence, was challenging...
The best way to challenge the street epistemologist is to say, why are you a Christian? Because I sought the truth.
That actually would be a very, very bold answer. But yeah, that would actually be a very good answer. But then, yeah, I for sake of brevity of this...
And then he would have to ask, then his next question would be, okay, so what is the truth?
Okay, yeah, then that is the primary question of this.
And then, as an evangelist...
Well, then, yeah, you
could definitely go into...
But I can tell you that the street epistemologist isn't going to give in that easy.
No, of course not.
But, have you noticed the street epistemologists never give you an answer? They give you another question.
That was give another question.
So I'm going to teach you in our time together how to, instead of directly answering their questions, or you can, out of charity, answer their questions, but always insist that they answer your question first. But I'm going to get you to learn how to dissect their questions, because their questions are, in essence, their arguments. And what we're going to be doing is presenting back our case in arguments. But the only way to do that is to be able to push back against their line of questionings, be able to push back against their epistemological foundations, and then be able to present our case. And it's a bit of a lengthy process, but in doing so, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to do this, not only to our encounters with street epistemologists, we're also going to learn this in our evangelical purposes, how to be able to build strong and robust theological arguments too. And then we're also going to then be able to strengthen our own beliefs and our own worldviews based on our Christian foundations and Christ crucified moving forward. That way we not only live theologically, but we also live theologically grounded in strong, robust philosophical arguments. So what I'm trying to teach you to do is not only present your case to a street epistemologist, but also how to learn
philosophy.
Well, learn to live philosophically. Learn to be a true lover of wisdom. And as we know, all wisdom is grounded in God's truth. So this is yet another act of worship.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, I agree.
Okay. With that being said, Farrell, I do appreciate your time tonight. I know our audience is really going to love this conversation we've had, and We do thank you for taking the time to listen to us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night.